Kwame Danso, the young and driven CEO of Danso Drinks, was the embodiment of success. His beverage company, headquartered in Accra, had become a household name across Ghana, known for its refreshing tropical juices and mineral water. Yet, despite his professional triumphs, his personal life felt hollow. His wife, Okosua, was a celebrated social media influencer. Her radiant beauty and motivational content inspired thousands of followers daily. Behind the filters and curated posts, however, Okosua harbored a painful secret: she couldn't have children. For years, Okosua had begged Kwame to consider adoption. "Kwame," she said one evening, her voice tender yet firm, "there are so many children in orphanages across Ghana who need a loving home. We can give them that." But Kwame's response was always the same. "Okosua," he sighed, sitting back in the sleek leather chair in their East Legon mansion, "I need an heir, a child with my bloodline. This company is my parents' legacy, and I must ensure it stays in the family." The issue became a sore point in their marriage, creating an invisible chasm between them. Then came the blow that changed everything. Kwame was diagnosed with cancer. At the peak of his career, Kwame found himself grappling with his mortality. His treatments carried a high risk of infertility, so at the urging of his doctors, he left a sperm sample at a hospital in Accra to preserve the hope of fatherhood. Months later, Kwame's surgery was successful, and he beat cancer. Yet, the prospect of infertility hung over him like a dark cloud. When Okosua suggested surrogacy, Kwame finally agreed. "It's not ideal," he admitted, "but it might be our best option." The couple found an egg donor and began the surrogacy process. Kwame hoped it would bridge the emotional gap between him and Okosua, but the cracks in their relationship ran deeper than he realized. On the day of the insemination procedure, the hospital was unusually chaotic. A nationwide nurses' strike had caused patient appointments to pile up, leaving staff overwhelmed. Afia, a final-year student at the University of Ghana, had come for a routine health check. She had no idea her life was about to change forever. In the confusion, a grave mistake occurred. Afia was mistakenly inseminated with Kwame's sperm instead of the intended surrogate. The hospital staff, terrified of the repercussions, quietly erased her records to avoid liability. Unaware of the error, Kwame and Okosua were told the surrogate was successfully pregnant. Kwame was ecstatic, sharing the news with Okosua over a celebratory dinner. "We're finally going to be parents," he said, his eyes shining with hope. Okosua smiled, masking her unease. She had reluctantly agreed to surrogacy to save their marriage, but the thought of raising a child that wasn't biologically hers gnawed at her. Meanwhile, Afia began experiencing unusual symptoms: constant nausea, fatigue, and dizziness. Concerned, she returned to the clinic for answers. A nurse delivered the news with a bright smile. "Congratulations, Miss Afia. You're pregnant." Afia's world tilted. "That's impossible," she exclaimed. "I'm a virgin." But the nurse insisted the results were accurate, advising Afia to take her condition seriously. Distraught, Afia bought a pregnancy test at a pharmacy and rushed to her hostel washroom. Her hands trembled as she waited for the results. When 2 red lines appeared, confirming her pregnancy, she collapsed onto the cold tiles. How could this happen? Afia was plunged into turmoil. Questions swirled in her mind, and fear gripped her heart. She confided in her closest friend, Abina, who was known for her level-headedness and unwavering support. "You're saying you're pregnant but still a virgin?" Abina asked, her brow furrowed. "Yes. And I don't know how it happened," Afia exclaimed, pacing back and forth in their shared hostel room. Abina grabbed her phone. "We need to go back to that hospital and demand answers. This doesn't make sense, Afia." At the hospital, the staff was uncooperative, brushing off Afia's concerns with vague reassurances. "Mistakes don't happen here," one nurse said curtly, her tone dismissive. But Afia knew something was wrong. Her instincts told her that her pregnancy wasn't natural, and she vowed to uncover the truth. Meanwhile, Kwame and Okosua's joy over the surrogacy began to wane. Okosua noticed Kwame was becoming obsessed with the child. "I need to know the surrogate is taking care of herself," Kwame insisted, constantly requesting updates from the agency. Akoswa couldn't help but feel sidelined. "Why are you so fixated on this child?" she asked one evening. "Because this child is my legacy, Akoswa," Kwame replied, his tone clipped. "Everything I've worked for hinges on this." Akoswa felt a pang of resentment. She had supported Kwame through every challenge, yet here she was, playing second fiddle to an unborn child. As months passed, Afia's pregnancy advanced. She dropped out of school, unable to handle the stigma and whispers from classmates. Abina stayed by her side, helping her navigate her new reality. Afia's father, a devout elder in their village church, was devastated when he heard the news. "How could you bring this shame upon our family?" he bellowed during a tense confrontation. Afia pleaded with him to believe her innocence, but her words fell on deaf ears. "You'll remain under this roof, but only because you're my daughter," her father declared. "Once the child is born, you must leave." Afia's mother, on the other hand, was more compassionate. "We'll get through this," she whispered late at night, stroking Afia's hair. Back at Danso Drinks, Kwame's world began to unravel. His sister, Afia, an investigative journalist, had uncovered discrepancies in the hospital records tied to the surrogacy agency. "Kwame, something's not right," Afia said during a visit to his office. "What do you mean?" Kwame asked, frowning. "I've been digging into the clinic's operations," Afia explained. "There's a cover-up involving mismatched procedures. I think your surrogate may not be who you think she is." Kwame's heart pounded. He dismissed Afia's claims outwardly but couldn't shake the nagging suspicion. That night, he contacted the hospital for reassurance. The evasive responses from the staff only deepened his doubts. Afia's labor began on a stormy night, with thunder roaring across the skies. Abina rushed her to a local clinic. Despite her fear, Afia found strength within herself, and after hours of pain, she gave birth to a healthy baby boy. When the nurse handed her the baby, Afia's heart swelled with a mix of love and confusion. "Who are you, little one?" she whispered, staring into his bright, curious eyes. Word of the birth spread quickly. Kwame, acting on Afia's findings, discovered the clinic where Afia had given birth. He was stunned when he saw the baby. The resemblance was uncanny. "This is my son," Kwame whispered, his voice trembling. Afia was horrified when Kwame arrived at her home with lawyers and police officers, demanding custody. "This child is mine," he said firmly. "I have the means to give him a good life." Afia refused. "You're a stranger to me, and you think you can take my child? Over my dead body." The legal battle became a national spectacle. News outlets picked up the story, dubbing it the Danso baby scandal. Public opinion was divided. Some sympathized with Afia, seeing her as a victim of a broken system. Others sided with Kwame, arguing that his wealth and resources made him the better parent. Akoswa, too, found herself in the crossfire. "You lied to me," she screamed at Kwame one evening. "You knew there was a problem with the surrogacy, and you didn't tell me." Kwame was silent, guilt etched across his face. In the end, the court ruled in favor of shared custody. Afia would raise the baby, but Kwame was granted visitation rights. Over time, the two began to form an unlikely partnership, united by their love for the child they shared. Kwame's perspective shifted. He saw Afia's determination and resilience and began to respect her. Afia, in turn, saw a softer side to Kwame, a man burdened by his own fears and insecurities. Akoswa, however, chose to leave the marriage, finding solace in her independence. The story ends on a hopeful note. Kwame, Afia, and their son, whom they named Nyamekye, God's gift, became a blended family, redefining what it meant to be connected by blood and love.